Well, greeting everyone. This is Fadi, and I want to welcome you to a new video series on a very, very interesting topic. The topic has to do with what we call the attraction to Islam. In other words, why is Islam so attractive for people to convert into it? Or maybe I should ask myself, as a convert from Islam to Christianity, is Islam really an attractive religion once you have done your homework and studied everything about the faith itself? Well, with that in mind, I want to turn our attention to Dr. J. Smith, who have done his own graduate dissertation on this topic. So he is, at least in this particular moment, our expert guest who can address this issue based on real research that he has done, talking to many converts into Islam. And he is going to share with us the journey of that research, the number of attraction that he basically grasped out of that questionnaire, and then we're going to address each one of them individually. With that in mind, let's turn our attention to Dr. J. Smith. Dr. J, welcome back as always. And it's really interesting that we're going to be talking about something that you yourself have done your research on.
Yeah, this is for my master's thesis at Fuller Seminary in California back in the 1980s. So this was back in the 1980s, so this is dated, understandably, but it hasn't changed too much since that time. And it's only for converts to Islam in the United States, on the East Coast of the United States, to be even more specific. I wanted to find out why Christians were becoming Muslims. Now, there weren't that many, but I needed to find out why, especially, they were converting to Islam. To me, it just didn't make sense. So what I was tasked with was to create a questionnaire and to send it to all the major mosques in all the major cities on the East Coast. Quebec, coming down to Boston, to New York, to Baltimore, to Philadelphia, to Washington, D.C., Harrisburg, wherever I could find Muslim Christians who had become Muslims. Now, obviously, in their city, the only Christians who really have become Muslims on a large scale are Afro-Americans. These are mostly Afro-Americans. I think I only found 2 white converts at that time that I could find anywhere in the United States. Now, there may be more. I just wasn't able to come across it. There may have been some on the West Coast. Today, they're probably even more so. But certainly at that time, the largest majority of people who had become Muslims were Afro-Americans. So understand it, that this is mainly that group. And I wanted to see what were they saying. So I went to them and I interviewed them face to face, most of them. Others I sent by mail and had them write back. And they were the ones that told me why they had converted. So I wanted to hear what they were saying, not what I suspected, or maybe I got from few people just by talking over coffee or in a chai dukan in some city on the Eastern Coast. I wanted to actually hear from them. And I wanted them to think about it. I wanted them to really unpack it. And then I usually went to them and we usually went through over their questionnaire to find out why they were doing this. And what I found out were there were 12 major reasons, 12 primary reasons why they left Christianity and became Muslims. Now, remember that Islam is not really perceived to be openly evangelistic, except for those of us who are engaging with them on the internet or at Speaker's Corner, the Dawagandis, we call them. They are very strongly evangelistic. But across the board, you don't find that many Muslims that are really bringing people into Islam, just because many of them just don't really think it's that important. They see themselves as superior anyways, that by natural attraction people would become Muslims. So it's mostly the growth of Islam is not by evangelism. The growth of Islam is by biological growth. These are people who are born Muslims. And almost all the Muslims you meet on the streets or anywhere in the West were born into a Muslim family. Once you're born, you are there for life. You don't choose it chooses you, and more, you don't leave it for, as you know, because of the persecution you'll get if you leave Islam. Right across the board. In fact, every convert you know has been persecuted. We don't talk much about it. We don't ask them to go and say much in public. That's why very few converts to Christianity you hear about or see, because if they were to go public, if they were to come like what you've done, look at all the hate you get. Look at all the hassle you get. Look at all the harassment you get, even to the point that you can't even say where you live or where you come from or where you're going. You can't even tell people before you get there when you're having an open conference. And you have to do almost all your work on YouTube because you will be killed. It is one of the few, it is probably the only religion I know where if you become an apostate, Islam, if you become an apostate, you will be killed. And it's there in chapter 4, verse 89 of the Quran. And of course, it's there in all 4 schools of Islamic law. For that reason, therefore, we don't hear much about Muslims who become Christians. We don't see much about them, except maybe their testimony on radio or on television, but not usually in a public context. So biological growth is what creates the growth in Islam, not evangelism. So that's why I was curious. If biological growth is what creates the growth, and it is growing faster than any other religion biologically, mainly because Muslim families tend to have the most children. I know in Britain, when I was there for 25 years, the average woman would have maybe 2.5% children. How she has 2.5, I don't know. But the average Muslim would have 4.2, double the national average, showing that Muslim families tend to be much bigger and they grow much faster. So yet there seemed to be an increase in dawah on the internet. Once the internet came into being, and this has happened after I did my research, then suddenly you start seeing a lot of these dawagandas like Ahmed Didat and Shabir Ali and Zakir Naik, and on YouTube more recently, Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawa and Yasser Qadi and all these other strong proponents for bringing people to Islam. I mean, we've seen this over and over again. YouTube has been used by the Muslims enormously. So now there is much more of a push to bring Muslims or Christians into Islam, a much stronger push. And as a result, there is much more quicker conversion growth going on as we speak. I mean, we've been watching these Palestinian groups, very aggressive Palestinian groups here in the United States on these elite campuses. And you will see a lot of the young kids who are there are wearing what you're wearing, the keffiyeh, but they usually wear the white and black one, the Palestinian one. Right. And quite a few of them are converting, and they're actually doing prayers, public prayers. You've been seeing this on TV. Now, they don't know what they're converting to, and I think this is just a knee-jerk reaction. But I wanted to find out why the other ones who are much more serious, we needed to do this. And that's why I did this research. We needed to assess this growth. We needed to assess this attraction. And that's why I went to these cities: Harrisburg, Lancaster, New York, Montreal, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington. And I wanted to, because of the fact I interviewed about anywhere from 30 to 40 of these guys and gals, and of them I also interviewed 7 imams, all who had been Christians who had become Muslims. They were the ones probably that helped me the most, because they understood why they had converted, and they also understood a lot more theology than a lot of the other converts. These 12 reasons, these primary reasons they gave are, and I want to go through them real quickly. And number 1 was the social laws. This is what was right at the top of the list. Now, by doing what I mean by number 1, this is the most popular amongst all the 12. There are actually about 20 or 30, but I took the 12 most popular ones, and right at the top of the list were social laws. Now, what you and I are going to do is we're going to look through each one of these. We're going to look at the social laws. Number 2 was this idea of the unity of God. It was actually a reaction against the Trinity. And so it was an attraction for the Tawhid against the Trinity. Number 3 was the idea of brotherhood, that for them as Afro-Americans, they felt a lot more accepted in a Muslim community because Christianity was perceived by them, or they were told, that it was for white people, whereas Islam is for people of color. Number 4 was the morality. They saw how they were very attracted by the morality of Islam. The 5th biggest attraction was the Quran itself, which surprised me. Its beauty and its applicability. This is what they said, not what I'm saying, what they said. The 6th most biggest attraction was the simplicity of Islamic teaching. And then number 7 was the testimony of other Muslims. how they acted and how they worked. They were really attracted by that. Number 8 was the rationality, the fact that Islam is very rational. It makes sense. It's very logical in its explanation and how it practices itself. And then number 9 was the practice itself, the 5 practices. Deen. They like these 5 practices, very hugely attractive to them. Number 10 was what they thought was the fact that Islam was superior to all other religions. And I'll show you what they meant by that, because I'm just going to quote what they meant, because I was surprised. I want to know what you really mean by superior. In what ways is it superior? So they went through quite a few categories. And number 11 was the theology they found in the Quran. They thought it was much more deep, much more practical, much more understandable. And then the last was the spirituality that they saw in Islam. Now, what we're going to do in this series, I want to go through each one of these, unpack what they're saying, and then get a response. What is our response? I'll give you my response to what I did in my paper, because I wanted to respond to each one of these, and then I want to get your response.
You got it.
On some of them, we're going to take more time, like the one on the brotherhood especially, will probably take a lot more time, because there's an awful lot more that we need to say on that as to what's going on there. But I want to go through each one of these. This is the first time you've seen this. You've not heard any of this. You've not looked at what I've said. You've not read my paper. So I want you, as a former Muslim yourself and also a Christian now, I want you to respond. After I respond, I want to hear what you respond. You may respond the same way I do. You may have some new ideas. We're not going to be looking at any PowerPoints. We're not going to be putting this on the screen like we've done in our other talks. This is more of a discussion between you and me. As Christians, when we see what the attraction is, you've come out of Islam. I've never been in Islam, but I've worked with Muslims for 40 years. Let's then discuss and see what's going on here. Where is it that this attraction is? Are these real attractions, or are they nothing more than pie in the sky?
Wonderful. I think I like this approach because it allows us to both freely address our own, let's say, understanding of these attractions and the way you view refuting it versus the way I will try to refute it from my own background, obviously. So thank you for bringing this up. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Until next episode, this is Fadi. God bless. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment. And ring the bell so you will be notified when we release new content. Our mission is to reach Muslims with the gospel of Jesus Christ and help Christians engage with their Muslim neighbors. If you want to join us in this life-changing work, please support us on patreon.com/CIRA International, or just click on the link below.